Hello, my name is Shane Reynolds and I'm the DCO for the Diocese of Cashel, Ferns and Ossory. This morning I have the Dean of Ferns, the Very Reverend Paul Mooney, to speak to him about his most recent pilgrimage and fundraiser for the thatch cottage in Ferns and the windows and gates at the Cathedral. So,
Delighted to have you on
Dean,
this morning.
you're very
Thanks very
welcome.
much,
Thank
Dean,
you very much
for coming on. And so, in short term, I suppose the Dean started a walk on Monday, the 15th of May, from Ferns in Wexford, all the way to St. David's in Wales. So, Dean, I suppose just from that, how did the idea come that you would do a pilgrimage to Wales?
I suppose I've been thinking about it for some time. The pilgrim routes were set up. We had an excellent seminar on pilgrimage in Wexford there a few months ago in February, as far as I remember. And it got me thinking about doing the pilgrimage and doing the walk.
Yes.
But unfortunately, the pilgrim route as it has been set out would take about 2 weeks to do if you were to do it the way on both sides. So I sat down, I think after Easter, we did the blessing of the beehives in the back of the cathedral. There are 3 bee scalps which were constructed by, I think it's Brindar Williams is his name. He's a Welsh artist, and there are same ones in St. David's in Wales. And at that time, we had the blessing stroke dedication of these in the back of the old graveyard at St. Eden's Cathedral. And I thought, yeah, I'd love to go, but time is the problem. And, you know, it's very, at the moment, because of the unfortunate shortage of readers and clergy, it's very hard to get a Sunday off. So pretty much impossible. So I looked at my diary, and the only week looking at me was the 15th of May. And I phoned my colleague Margaret Sykes, and she said, yes, I can take the Wednesday service. And Nicola Halford said, yes, I can do emergency cover during that week. So I knew that was the week that was good to go. So it was fairly short notice. And then as I was preparing, I had done a walk from Ferns to St. Mullins back around 2015, I think, on St. Columba's Day to raise some money for the projects that I was assisting in North Korea at that time. And so I thought, I'd really like to get some things done for really around the cathedral. If pilgrims are going to come, and hopefully they will come in good numbers, it would be, I'd like to get the gates of the cathedral. They've been painted with white paint and layers of white paint for years now. And I'd like to get them stripped and dipped, as they say. And I know that costs a few thousand to do because you have to get them taken off and taken away and properly treated. And also later this year, we have to start making some applications and see what assistance we can get towards putting new thatch on St. Mogue's Cottage. Because it was opened there in 2002 and the thatch is getting to a stage where it needs to be replaced. So there are various things, and we've also done some work with windows, although I think that's covered already by a project we had, a fundraiser we had a couple of years ago, where we made a Ferns Bakes cookery book from the parishioners. And so we have a couple of things. I just want to have the place in good order if people are coming, and hopefully people will come. People already are coming in a trickle, and hopefully that trickle goes further. So naturally, I thought a lot about St. Edan or St. Aidan or St. Mogue, whatever name you want to give him, and St. David in Wales, and the type of relationship, the type of monasticism and type of anam cara relationship, as it was called in Irish, that they would have had. So I basically set off on the Monday morning. Dylan Beale very kindly set up the GoFundMe page.
Yes.
And it was just basically that. I set off. I went down from the deanery here to St. Mogue's Well, or St. Moling's Well, depending who talks about it. And from there up to the cathedral. And then I left the cathedral and I continued to Enniscorthy and went to, because I didn't have time for the main walk.
Yes.
I could really only do the main roads.
Yes, of course.
So I did the main road from Ferns to Enniscorthy, had a late lunch in Enniscorthy, courtesy of Dunn's Stores reduced to clear corner. And
always handy on those.
Always handy, and plenty of water. And then I continued. I went to St. Mary's Church for a prayer and a visit. And I must say they have a very nice toilet there, so that was great to use that.
Yes.
And because these things are important when you're going
very
to walk.
important along these pilgrim walks. And
then I walked really along the Slaney, and I was walking along the Slaney really from Scarwelch roundabout south of Ferns all along that day. And I stopped then in Oilgate, and there's a St. Raphael's garden there, which the Roman Catholic Church have made there. It's a meditative garden, and it was very nice to sit there and take off my boots and massage my feet for a little while.
It's also important.
And then I continued south of Oilgate, got another little bite to eat in Oilgate, and continued down to St. David's Well, which is in Ballyslaney, I think it's the name, or Ballinaslaney. And it's just off the road south of Oilgate. So that was nice. It was a bit off-roadish and, well, on country roads. And then back onto the main road and down into Wexford. And I used the trusty booking.com and got a place to stay in Wexford that night. It was a really beautiful walk, I must admit, because most of it was near the Slaney or in sight of the Slaney.
Yes.
And at one stage, I got to see some herons flying around Scarwelch and some egrets, and also then south of Enniscorthy, I could see the swans in the river, which was
very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, they were there to welcome you, were they?
They were there to accompany me, yeah.
Yes.
And but it's also the saddest part of that day was I realized just how many memorials are on the side of the road for people who have died in accidents.
Yeah. It's something you wrote about, all right. It struck you.
It really struck me, because when you're driving, you just see one or two. Who are walking, you see so many. Of course, all the people who were killed are either young people, families, even people in their middle age, very, very few older people.
Yes.
And lives that were just cut short or cut in the middle. And of course, families are grieving, and so they've put these up, and you can see some of them are still very well tended after years, with flowers and candles and little statues and things around them. And it really just made me think of the amount of people who are grieving because of these unfortunate accidents that have happened. And then I went down to Wexford. Unfortunately, I arrived too late to get into St. Iberius, and I left too early the next morning to get into St. Next day was basically to Rosslare, and that was, I found a harder walk than the day before, partly because my feet were a bit sore, but also it's a long, straight road, and until you finally get to the end of it, it doesn't seem to have an end. So mind you, coming back on the bus from the boat, I was surprised to see that it took about 20 minutes,
Right.
25 minutes
Okay. Yeah.
to go on the bus for what I had spent the day
Yeah.
walking.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good to see the places along the road. I was struck by the amount of derelict houses on that road. I know a
Yeah.
lot of them were probably the old house and there's a new house built somewhere else, but it just seemed, when you see houses kind of falling in and roofs falling in, whether they're thatched roofs or slate roofs, you think, families have lived there, people lived there for generations. They were probably their most valuable asset at that time.
Mm.
And things that you
Yeah.
see. I know economies change and things pass, but it's just part of it's the transience of life. Unfortunately, that day I was walking. I had to walk. I had to keep to a to a schedule because so it meant I couldn't really go off and see Kilscorn and Killinick, even though I saw the signs for them,
Yes.
because I wasn't quite sure. I know they're not that far off the road, but I wasn't quite sure.
Sure.
And the
How
feet
far
were
off
quite
the road?
sore,
Yeah.
so I just kept going.
Yeah. Stick to the route. Yes.
Yes,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, and that brought you up to I suppose, when you got to Rosslare at some stage then, and then you got the boat over
Yeah,
to.
I got to Rosslare in the afternoon,
Yeah.
probably about just after 4, and I was when I went down in, I didn't know how long it was going to take to get a ticket, but that took about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I got my ticket. That was sorted. I got a welcome sit down for a while, and then onto the boat and had another rest on the boat.
Nice. Yeah.
Other people were walking around and eating and doing different things. I just found a comfortable bench of seats that I could lie on,
and
yeah,
took your rest there. You had enough
took my rest. I did take a quick look at Ireland as I was leaving Ireland and Wales as we were going into Wales.
Yeah.
Arrived into Fishguard, and I had already arranged another place to stay. And so I walked. Fishguard is basically, there's the lower town where the harbour is, where we normally go in from the boat, and then there's an upper town. So I was walking up to the upper town, which I've been in before, so I had a half an idea where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in, and the man who was talking to me, and he said, "Oh, you're a pilgrim." And I said, "Yes, I suppose you could call me that." And he said, "If I'd known that," he said, "you shouldn't have gone through booking.com. You could have come with, just got in touch with me."
Yourself, yes.
Yeah, so he was very welcoming, and his parents had written a small book about St. David's and the walks, and back in the 1960s, and he gave me a reprint of that book, and he made me most welcome, and I was free there to use whatever bread and cheese and whatever was in the fridge and make something. And the next day he made sure that I had some food with me to go, because he said, "Look, all the shops have closed these days.
Yeah.
You won't really find anywhere." So I walked what I discovered was the old road from Fishguard to St. David's for about half the day. And then I was on the new road, which was quite busy. I was exceedingly happy. One of my parishioners gave me a yellow vest the week before I went on the walk.
Yeah.
And it was, to say the least, a lifesaver.
Of course,
although thankfully the traffic comes in clumps, and you just have to kind of stand up on the ditch and let the clump go by. And the dean then in St. David's the next day told me that a lot of these ditches and they are in fact stone walls.
Right.
And they were made by Irish labourers who came over in the 19th century and built these walls on the sides of the road. And they were covered then with air. So there's actually a stone wall inside the ditch. And I was wondering why the ditches were so hard when I was standing up on them, but now I know. So there's another link between Ireland and Wales.
And
But the
Wales.
regret that day is
Yeah.
it would have taken about 5 days to do the coastal path, as they call it.
Right.
And it would have been absolutely beautiful because as
Yes.
even on the main road as you're going along, you can see the sea quite often from the distance, and you can see
Yes.
how it goes along. The villages were interesting. They kept all their old houses, and as the dean told me the next day, they're all rented out to holidaymakers. But it's very nice. It reminded me very much of when I was rector in Duras and Featherdon-Sea, the whole Hook Peninsula. It's very similar.
So you reached the cathedral and you met the dean, and then did you? I think I read somewhere that you were there for the communion service. Is that right?
Yes,
Yes.
The communion service was at 8 in the morning, so I got
Right.
in about
Bit of a
6 or 7 in the evening. About
Yeah.
7 in the evening into Fishguard. I was quite
Into-
hungry, but I knew where the supermarket was, so I got things to eat, and there was
Yeah.
a place to sit down outside where you could eat.
great.
And then I looked around. My phone wasn't working so well. St. David's is not a great place for Wi-Fi. And I found a guest house that looked okay. I had tried one or two and they seemed to be closed. And a man answered the door and he said, yes, they had a room. So I stayed there that night.
Brilliant.
And I went to bed. I'd say I went to bed almost as soon as I went in. I was tired. It's a long walk from Fishguard down to St. David. And I got up in the morning and I went over and I went to the 8 a.m. communion service.
Mhm.
It's a large cathedral, so there are
Yes.
various side chapels and main chapel and another chapel and so on. So I did find where they were, and it was really nice. And I've met Dean Sarah before,
Yeah.
so she said, "Come on over around 11." She hadn't got much. She was actually at home that day. Her job and my job are very, very different.
Very different. Yeah.
Very different, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
St. David's is a national cathedral for Wales. There, it depends, as does say St. Patrick's and Christchurch in Dublin, a lot on a tourism business, really.
Right.
So the dean has a lot of administrative work. She has a staff between part-timers and full-timers of around 40 people.
Wow.
And yet it's a low-key operation by a British cathedral standard. She has a woman priest who assists her, who is effectively the pastoral person who deals with the daily pastoral side of the parish and the pastoral side of the cathedral. They're also making a pilgrimage pastor.
Oh, wow. Very
And I
interesting.
think he will be dealing with the people who come as pilgrims and also doing other work about the outreach of the cathedral as a cathedral.
Oh, very good. Okay. So that should be interesting to see how that goes. And in time, obviously, hopefully, I might get myself over and do the pilgrim walk.
Well, I sincerely hope so, because one of the reasons I wanted to do it this time now is because in June the official Ancient Connections project is finishing.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this was begun as an interreg project when Britain was still in the EU, as the last interreg project, I'm fairly sure. And so the funding has remained until now between Wexford County Council and Pembrokeshire as the two leads on either side.
Yes.
And a lot of things have been done to encourage this through that.
True that.
So I would hope that the seeds that have been sown and the plants that have grown will be hardy enough to continue.
To continue it. Excellent.
Yeah.
Because I suppose, it's important to continue these things and use these things when we have them as well. And people are putting a lot of work into the roots and obviously they're implying in Wales the pilgrim pastor. So it's important to continue these things and use these things and for our own reflection, obviously, and for yourself. Obviously, it was a personal pilgrimage, but at the same time, it was a fundraiser for much needed change, maybe in Ferns. And I this morning when I went onto your donation GoFundMe, I noticed that you're 35 over the mark now.
Oh, very good.
So that's great, and there's a great map that I'll put on the screen later on for people to see of the route you did in Ferns all the way down right into Fishguard to Wales and then to St. David's. So I suppose on your return then, when you were coming home from there and you had it all done and everything, how did you feel? What was the initial thoughts and was it?
Initially I was very, very happy that I did it,
exactly.
that my feet held out and that I held out. I've been walking every day for a few months, so it helped. Just really, it was just really interesting to do it.
Yes.
I met some people and it was interesting to talk to the people who I met.
Yeah.
It was a time of some reflection and prayer and quiet. It was just nice to be
still time. Exactly.
Yeah, to be really on downtime because you're away and I had managed to sort of scrub the desk for a week. And that was nice. And it also gave me time to think because as we look at the church, we are very conscious that numbers of people attending regular Sunday services have declined. But as I have said to people recently, when I was looking through my registers and different things, my job otherwise hasn't changed. Same number of baptisms, we still have the same number of funerals or more, I don't know. We still have the same number of weddings, regardless of whether there are civil weddings have come up, but we're still having the same number of weddings, still have the same number of children in the school. We still have the same, or if not more, older and bolder to go visit and do things with. But people are living in a very busy environment, and there are so many calls on particularly family life and even single person's life, and there's a lot of pressure on people's lives that we don't fully realize quite often.
Yes.
Things like pilgrimages and places of peace and meaning are exceedingly important because, in a sense, people need those little oases to be able to refresh themselves.
Definitely,
And for me, that week was a refreshing. Big thanks to all those who donated so generously, and who supported with texts and prayers and different things. I'm really surprised the effect of it all, because I just went off and I thought it'd be good if we could raise a bit of money on the side, so to speak. But I'm just really impressed at how it has got into people's imagination.
Well, Dean, thanks very much for coming on this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I wish all the best for the works that will begin over the summer months. So thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Shane. Take care. God bless. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.